Section 1. The Hook. 5 Years of Ghosts. Some people say you can't love a ghost. I've been doing it for 5 years. The rain came down in sheets that Thursday afternoon, the kind of rain that soaks through your jacket before you even realize you're wet. Emma stood at the grave with a single red rose in her hand, the same way she'd stood here every year on this date. Same time. Same flowers. Same hollow ache in her chest that never quite went away. The headstone was simple. Black granite. His name carved in letters she'd traced with her fingers so many times she could see them when she closed her eyes. Marcus Chun. 1996 to 2020. Gone too soon, loved forever. She knelt down, placed the rose against the cold stone, and whispered the words she always whispered. I miss you. Still. Always. 5 years. You'd think it would get easier, right? That time would do what everyone promised it would do. Heal, soften, fade the edges of the pain. But here's the thing about losing your first love, your real love, the kind of love that makes you believe in forever. It doesn't fade. It just becomes part of you. Like a scar you carry under your clothes that no one else can see. She stood, wiping rain from her face, and started walking back toward the cemetery gates. She didn't see him. But we do. Across the lot, half hidden behind a line of oak trees, a figure sat motionless on a black motorcycle. The engine rumbled low, a quiet growl barely audible over the rain. He wore a leather jacket and gloves, but it was the helmet that made him impossible to read. Black, full face, visor down. No eyes. No expression. Just a faceless shadow watching her every move. His hands gripped the handlebars, knuckles tight. He'd been here before. Not just today. He'd been watching for weeks. Emma pulled her jacket tighter and disappeared through the gates, completely unaware that someone was tracking her steps, cataloging her routines, memorizing the way she moved through the world like a woman still half living in the past. The biker didn't follow. Not yet. He just sat there in the rain, staring at the grave she'd just left. The grave with his name on it. Because here's what Emma didn't know, what she couldn't know. The man in that grave wasn't dead. And the stranger watching her from the shadows? He'd been protecting her from dangers she didn't even know existed. Everything she believed was about to shatter. And the love she thought she'd buried 5 years ago? It was about to claw its way back from the dead. Section 2. The world she lives in. Surviving without him. Emma's apartment was small. Studio-sized, really. The kind of place where your bed, your kitchen, and your entire life fit into 400 square feet. She'd moved here 3 years ago, after living with her parents became unbearable, all those pitying looks, all that careful tiptoeing around her grief like it was a landmine. She preferred the loneliness of her own space. At least here, no one watched her fall apart. She'd wake up reaching for him. Every single morning. Her hand would slide across the cold sheets, searching for warmth that hadn't been there in 5 years, and for those first few seconds, those cruel, beautiful seconds before her brain caught up, she'd forget he was gone. Then reality would crash in, and she'd remember. The leather jacket hung on a hook by the door. His jacket. Worn brown leather with a torn pocket he'd always meant to fix but never did. She wore it sometimes, even though it was 2 sizes too big. It still smelled like him if she buried her face in the collar. Motor oil and cedar and something undefinably Marcus. His motorcycle helmet sat on the shelf above her bed, collecting dust. She couldn't bring herself to get rid of it. Couldn't bring herself to get rid of anything. Her life had become a series of routines designed to keep her moving without actually going anywhere. She worked at Brewed Awakening, a cafe downtown where she made lattes for people who didn't remember her name and smiled when customers asked how her day was going. Good, she'd say. Always good. Never honest. Because how do you tell a stranger that you're barely holding it together? That you're 27 years old and you've already used up your lifetime supply of love on someone who's never coming back? But lately, things had gotten worse. It started small. A feeling, mostly. That prickle on the back of your neck when you sense someone watching. She'd catch glimpses of the same car parked outside her building. A dark sedan with tinted windows. It was probably nothing. Probably. Then came the messages. The first one arrived 2 weeks ago, slipped under her apartment door. You're beautiful when you don't know anyone's watching. No signature. No return address. Just those words on a plain white card that made her skin crawl. She'd taken it to the police. Sat across from an officer who barely looked up from his paperwork. "Probably just an admirer, ma'am," he'd said, like that was supposed to be comforting. "Maybe someone from your work? You get a lot of regulars." "This isn't admiration," she'd insisted. "This is. Unless there's a direct threat, there's not much we can do. Keep the note. If anything escalates, come back." She'd left feeling smaller than when she'd walked in. 2 more notes came after that. Then she started noticing someone following her home from work, always staying far enough back that she couldn't see their face, close enough that she knew it wasn't coincidence. Her fear was real. Visceral. The kind that makes you check your locks 3 times before bed and sleep with your phone within arm's reach. But she was also tired. Bone-deep exhausted from carrying grief like a second skeleton inside her body. And now this new nightmare layered on top of the old one. She thought about Marcus constantly. Wondered what he'd do if he were here. He'd always been protective, the kind of guy who walked on the street side of the sidewalk and texted to make sure she got home safe. But he wasn't here. He'd never be here again. The accident played in her mind sometimes, uninvited. They'd told her the bike went off the cliff on Highway 47, the winding canyon road he'd driven 100 times. Witnesses said he was going too fast. Lost control on a curve. The bike exploded on impact. The body burned beyond recognition. She'd identified him by the ring. The one she'd given him for his 23rd birthday, a simple silver band engraved with their initials. They'd found it in the wreckage, melted and twisted but still identifiable. "I'm sorry for your loss," the medical examiner had said. Sorry didn't bring him back. Now, 5 years later, Emma was stuck. Frozen in a life that kept moving around her while she stood still. Friends had stopped setting her up on dates after she'd cancelled the 4th one in a row. Her mom had stopped asking if she was seeing anyone. Everyone had accepted what she couldn't, that she'd never love anyone the way she'd loved Marcus. You know that feeling when you leave your phone somewhere? That panic. That emptiness. The way your hand instinctively reaches for your pocket and finds nothing? She'd felt that for 1,825 days. And counting. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that the stranger following her wasn't a threat. He was the only thing standing between her and real danger. And the ghost she'd been mourning? He was closer than she could possibly imagine. Section 3. The Stranger Appears. Guardian in the Shadows. It happened on a Tuesday night. Emma's shift had run late, someone called in sick, and she'd stayed to close up the cafe. By the time she locked the door and started walking home, the streets were nearly empty. Streetlights cast long shadows across the pavement, and the November air bit through her jacket. She'd made it 2 blocks when she heard the footsteps behind her. Not the casual pace of someone heading in the same direction. These were deliberate, matching her rhythm. Speeding up when she did. Her pulse kicked into overdrive. She risked a glance over her shoulder and saw him, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark hoodie pulled low over his face. The same figure she'd seen lurking outside her building. The same car that had been following her. Emma's hands trembled as she fumbled for her phone. She walked faster. He did too. "Hey," he called out. His voice made her stomach turn. "Hey, I just want to talk." She didn't answer. Didn't slow down. Her apartment was still 3 blocks away, and the street felt impossibly long. "Don't be like that," he said, closer now. Close enough that she could hear his breathing. "I've been trying to get your attention for weeks. You keep ignoring me." Her throat tightened. She broke into a half-run, and that's when she heard his footsteps turn into a sprint behind her. Then, the roar of an engine shattered the night. A motorcycle came out of nowhere, tires screeching as it cut between Emma and the man chasing her. The bike skidded to a stop, blocking the sidewalk completely, and the rider sat there, engine rumbling, staring at the stalker. Emma stumbled backward, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack a rib. The biker didn't move. Didn't speak. Just sat there on that black motorcycle with his helmet on, visor down, completely still. But there was something in his posture, in the way he angled his body between her and the threat, that radiated danger. The stalker took a step back. "What the hell, man? This isn't your business." The biker still didn't speak. He just turned his head slowly toward the stalker, and even though Emma couldn't see his eyes, she felt the weight of his stare. The kind of look that doesn't need words. The stalker hesitated, looked at Emma, then back at the silent figure on the bike. Whatever he saw there made his decision for him. "Crazy bitch isn't worth it anyway," he muttered, then turned and disappeared into the shadows. Emma stood frozen, her breath coming in short gasps, trying to process what had just happened. The biker turned toward her. For a moment, neither of them moved. She should have been terrified. A stranger on a motorcycle, face hidden, appearing out of nowhere, it should have scared her. But it didn't. Something about him felt safe. Impossible as that sounded. "Thank you," she managed, her voice shaking. "I don't know what would have happened if you—" He held up a gloved hand, cutting her off gently. Then he nodded once. Just once. And rode away. The engine's growl faded into the distance, leaving Emma standing alone under the streetlight, her mind racing. His silence felt like a language she used to know. After that night, she started seeing him everywhere. Not following her, exactly. More like watching over her. She'd leave work, and he'd be parked across the street, leaning against his bike. She'd glance out her apartment window at midnight, and he'd be there in the parking lot, a shadow among shadows. He never approached. Never tried to talk to her. Just watched. Most women would have called the cops. Would have filed a restraining order or moved apartments or done something to get away from a stranger who kept showing up in their life uninvited. But Emma didn't. Because something about him felt familiar. Safe. Like coming home to a house you'd lived in years ago, the layout changed, the furniture different, but the bones of it still recognizable. Impossible. That's what it was. But she couldn't shake the feeling. People at the cafe started noticing. "There's that motorcycle guy again," Riley, her co-worker, said one afternoon, peering through the window. "Third time this week. You sure you don't know him?" Emma wiped down the espresso machine, keeping her voice casual. "Never seen him before that night." "He's got serious, mysterious stranger energy," Riley continued, grinning. "Like a romance novel cover come to life. All he needs is a billowing white shirt and some windswept hair, if he ever takes that helmet off." Another co-worker, Josh, leaned over the counter. "Maybe he's your dead boyfriend come back from the grave. You know, like a ghost rider or something." The words landed like a slap. Emma's hands froze. She forced a laugh, but it came out brittle. "That's not funny." Sorry, Josh backpedaled. "I didn't mean." "It's fine." She turned away, busying herself with cleaning already clean counters. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking. That night, she found the rose. Emma climbed the stairs to her apartment, exhausted from another double shift, and nearly stepped on it. A single red rose, lying across her doormat, tied with a simple black ribbon. No note. No explanation. She picked it up slowly, her fingers trembling as they brushed the soft petals. Red roses. Marcus used to leave them for her. Not on special occasions. He wasn't that predictable. He'd leave them randomly. On her car windshield. On her doorstep. Once, he'd somehow snuck one into her locker at work. "Just because," he'd say when she asked why. "Just because you're you." This rose was identical. Same deep crimson color. Same long stem. Same way it was tied, ribbon looped twice and tucked under. Her heart stopped. Because dead men don't leave flowers. Dead men don't watch you from the shadows. Dead men don't ride motorcycles through the night, protecting you from dangers you didn't even know existed. Emma's vision blurred. She clutched the rose so tightly a thorn bit into her palm, drawing blood. This wasn't possible. It couldn't be possible. But as she stood there in the dim hallway, staring at that single red rose, a thought whispered through her mind, dangerous and devastating and too fragile to speak aloud. What if he's alive? And just like that, the carefully constructed wall she'd built around her grief began to crack. Section 4. The Confrontation. Take off the helmet. Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat on her bed, staring at the rose, running through every logical explanation her mind could manufacture. A coincidence. Someone who knew about Marcus and was playing a cruel joke. A stranger with similar taste in flowers. None of it made sense. By morning, she'd made a decision. She was done waiting. Done wondering. Done living in this limbo between grief and impossible hope. She was going to get answers. She spotted him that evening, parked in his usual spot across from the cafe. But this time, when her shift ended, she didn't walk home. She walked straight toward him. He must have sensed something different in her approach because his posture changed. Stiffened. His hand moved to the ignition. "Don't," she called out. "Don't you dare run from me." He paused. Emma closed the distance between them, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "I know you've been following me. I know you saved me from that guy. And I know," her voice cracked, "I know you left that rose on my doorstep." The biker didn't move. Didn't respond. "Now tell me why." The words came out fierce, desperate. "Tell me why you're doing this. Tell me who you are." He turned the key. The engine roared to life. Something inside Emma snapped. She lunged forward and grabbed his arm, her fingers closing around his wrist. "I said don't." And that's when she felt it. The scar. Raised and rough beneath the leather sleeve. A familiar ridge of tissue that her fingers had traced 100 times before. The scar on his left wrist from the bike chain accident when he was 17, the one that had needed 12 stitches, the one he'd been embarrassed about until she'd kissed it and told him scars just meant he'd survived something. Time stopped. Emma's hand trembled against his wrist. She looked up at the black helmet, at the faceless figure sitting perfectly still now, engine idling. "Take it off," she whispered. He didn't move. "Take it off." The scream tore out of her, raw and broken. For a long moment, nothing happened. The world held its breath. Then slowly, so slowly it felt like watching a dream unfold, his hands moved to the helmet. His fingers found the chin strap. Unclipped it. Emma's vision tunneled. Sound faded to white noise. Her entire universe narrowed to this single moment, this one impossible action. The helmet lifted. And the world stopped spinning. Because the face staring back at her? She'd kissed it 1,000 times. Had memorized every angle, every freckle, every expression. The slight crook in his nose from a childhood break. The scar through his left eyebrow. The way his jaw tensed when he was nervous. The face she'd buried 5 years ago. "No." The word fell from her lips like a stone. "No. No, you're—" Marcus sat there on the motorcycle, his dark eyes locked on hers, looking older. Harder. His hair was shorter, a beard shadowed his jaw, but it was him. Unmistakably, impossibly him. "You're dead." Emma's voice shattered. "I buried you. I identified your body. Emma. No." She stumbled backward, shaking her head violently. "No, you're not real. This isn't real. Who are you? What kind of sick game is this?" "Emma, please." Some imposter? Some psycho who found his picture and got plastic surgery? Is that it? Her voice climbed higher, hysteria bleeding through. "Because Marcus is dead. He died 5 years ago. I was at his funeral. I watched them lower his casket into the ground." Marcus swung his leg off the bike and took a step toward her. Emma's legs gave out. She collapsed onto the asphalt, her knees slamming against the ground, but she didn't feel it. Couldn't feel anything except the crushing weight of impossibility pressing down on her chest. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't process the fact that the ghost she'd been mourning for 5 years was standing in front of her, alive and solid and real. Marcus dropped to his knees in front of her, and she saw his hands shaking as he reached for her, then pulled back, like he didn't know if he was allowed to touch her anymore. "I'm sorry." His voice broke on the words. "God, Emma, I'm so sorry." She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face, and something inside her fractured completely. 5 years of grief, of loneliness, of learning to live with a hole in her chest, all of it came crashing down at once. "You're alive," she whispered. "You're alive." "Yes." "How?" The word came out strangled. "How is this possible?" "I saw the police report. The medical examiner. They showed me the ring, Marcus." "Your ring. The one I gave you." "I know." Then how are you sitting here? How are you? Her breath hitched. How could you let me think you were dead? The anguish in his eyes nearly destroyed her. Because if I'd stayed, he said quietly, each word heavy with pain, they would have killed you too. Emma's mind spun. They? Who's they? What are you talking about? Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made her chest ache. It's me. It's really me, Emma. I know I have no right to ask you to believe me. But I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted any of this. Then why? The question came out as a sob. Why would you do this to me? To protect you. His voice cracked. I had 5 seconds to make an impossible choice, and I chose wrong. I thought if I disappeared, if they thought I was dead, you'd be safe. That you could move on and live your life and be happy without. Happy? Emma's voice rose to a scream. You thought I'd be happy? I mourned you, Marcus. I fell apart. She pressed her hands against her face, trying to hold herself together and failing. I've spent 5 years learning how to exist in a world without you. 5 years convincing myself that the pain would eventually fade. And now you're telling me you were alive this whole time. I know. His own tears were falling now, cutting tracks through the dust on his face. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so goddamn sorry. Emma looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the weight he carried. The shadows under his eyes. The haunted look of someone who'd been running from something for far too long. What happened to you? She whispered. Marcus met her gaze, and in his eyes she saw fear. Real, visceral fear. Something I should have told you about a long time ago, he said. Something that's been hunting me ever since. And just like that, Emma realized the nightmare wasn't over. It was only beginning. Section 5. The truth unfolds. Why he vanished. They ended up in an abandoned parking lot on the edge of town, the kind of place where streetlights had given up years ago and weeds pushed through cracks in the concrete. Emma sat on the curb, arms wrapped around herself, while Marcus paced in front of her like a caged animal. Tell me everything, she said. Her voice was steadier now, but her hands still shook. From the beginning. No more lies. Marcus stopped pacing. Looked at her with those eyes she'd once known better than her own. You remember I was working at Rodriguez Auto Shop, he started. You were a mechanic. That's what I told you. He dragged a hand down his face. That's what I thought I was, at first. But the shop, it was a front. They were moving product. Drugs, mostly. Some weapons. I didn't know, Emma. I swear to God, when I took that job, I thought I was just fixing cars. Emma's stomach twisted. How long before you figured it out? 3 months, maybe. His voice went hollow. I saw things I shouldn't have seen. Packages that didn't match the invoices. Conversations that stopped when I walked into a room. And then one night, Rodriguez pulls me aside and tells me I'm being promoted. To what? Driver. The word tasted like poison in his mouth. They needed someone who knew bikes, someone who could move fast through back roads and mountain passes. Someone the cops wouldn't look twice at. A local kid with a clean record. Emma felt bile rise in her throat. And you said yes. I said no. Marcus's voice hardened. I told Rodriguez I wanted out. That I'd keep my mouth shut about what I'd seen, but I was done. He stopped. Swallowed hard. What did he say? Emma whispered. He showed me pictures. Marcus's voice cracked. Of you. Leaving your apartment. At the grocery store. Walking to your car. They'd been following you for weeks, and I had no idea. The world tilted. He said if I didn't disappear, permanently, they'd make you disappear. Those were his exact words. We'll make her vanish, and no one will ever find the body. Marcus's hands clenched into fists. I had 72 hours to make it look real, or they'd kill you. Not as a warning. Not as leverage. Just because they could. Emma's breath came in short gasps. So you faked your death. I had one friend I could trust. Mikey Chen, my cousin, you never met him. He worked night shift at the county morgue. Marcus's voice went flat, detached, like he was reciting facts about someone else's life. There was a John Doe. Homeless guy, overdose, no family to claim him. Same height as me, similar build. Oh my God. Mikey helped me stage the crash. We used my bike, put the body in my jacket, made sure it burned hot enough that, he stopped, seeing her face. I'm sorry. You don't need those details. The ring, Emma said numbly. I identified you by the ring. I left it on him. Marcus's voice broke. The ring you gave me. I had to. Had to make it real enough that Rodriguez's people would believe it. That the police would believe it. That you would believe it. Emma stared at him, this man who'd once been her entire world, and felt like she was looking at a stranger. I left town that night, he continued. Changed my name. Moved to Nevada, then Colorado, then Montana. Kept moving. Took jobs under the table, cash only. No social media, no phone, no contact with anyone from my old life. For 5 years. For 5 years. He finally looked at her. And every single day, Emma, I wanted to call you. Wanted to show up at your door and tell you I was alive and beg you to forgive me. Every single day. But you didn't. Because I thought you were safe. His voice rose, desperate now. I thought if I stayed gone, if they believed I was dead, you'd be left alone. You could grieve and move on and have a life without looking over your shoulder. Emma stood up slowly. Then why are you here now? Why come back? Marcus's expression went dark. 3 weeks ago, I got word through connections. People who still owe me favors. The cartel knows about you. The blood drained from Emma's face. How? Someone talked. Or they did their homework. I don't know. But they know you exist, they know who you are, and they're using you as bait to draw me out. The stalker, Emma whispered. Cartel informant. His job was to scare you, make you vulnerable, make you desperate. Eventually, you'd either disappear or someone would show up to protect you. Marcus's jaw clenched. Either way, they'd be watching. Waiting to see if I'd surface. And you did. I came back because leaving you alone was supposed to keep you safe. His voice broke. But it didn't. And I'd rather die than let them hurt you because of me. Emma's emotions crashed over her like waves. Grief, rage, love, betrayal, all tangled together until she couldn't tell where one ended and another began. You let me grieve you, she said, her voice shaking. I wore black for a year, Marcus. A year. I cried so hard at your funeral that I threw up in the parking lot. I let my friends and family watch me fall apart because I thought the love of my life was dead. I know. You let me think I was broken. That I'd never love anyone again. That something was fundamentally wrong with me because I couldn't move on. I know. Tears streamed down his face. And I hate myself for it. I've hated myself every day for 5 years. Emma turned away from him, pressing her palms against her eyes. Part of her wanted to scream. To hit him. To make him feel even a fraction of the pain she'd carried. But another part, a part she hated and loved in equal measure, wanted to collapse into his arms and never let go. And you came back, she whispered. For me. For you. His voice was barely audible. Always for you. She turned to face him. What do you want me to do, Marcus? What's the plan here? He took a step closer. Come with me. Tonight. We disappear together. I have money saved, fake IDs, a safe house in Canada. We can be gone before sunrise. Run away. Yes. Leave everything behind. My job, my apartment, my family. Your life, he finished. I know what I'm asking. And I know I have no right to ask it. But it's the only way I can keep you safe. Emma laughed, but it came out bitter. You can't just show up and expect me to ride off into the sunset like none of this happened. Like you didn't let me believe you were dead for 5 years. Like you didn't destroy me. I know. I need answers, Marcus. I need justice. I need... Her voice broke. I need you to understand what you did to me. I do understand. He closed the distance between them, stopping just short of touching her. And I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you let me. But right now, we don't have time. They know where you live. They know where you work. And if we don't move soon, then we fight back, Emma said fiercely. Marcus blinked. What? I'm done running. Done hiding. Done letting other people decide what happens to my life. She met his gaze, and for the first time since the helmet came off, she saw a flicker of the girl she used to be. You want to protect me? Fine. But we do this my way. Emma, these people took 5 years of my life. Took you from me. Her voice hardened. And I want them to pay for it. Marcus stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Okay, he said softly. Okay. We fight. And in that moment, something shifted between them. Not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe the beginning of something new. Something forged in fire and grief and impossible choices. Something that might be strong enough to survive what was coming next. Section 6. The enemy closes and... They're coming. They didn't make it back to Emma's apartment in time. Marcus's phone buzzed, a burner he kept for emergencies. He glanced at the screen and his face went white. We need to go. Now. What? They're at your building. Emma's heart dropped into her stomach. My neighbors. They don't care about your neighbors. Marcus grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the motorcycle. They care about you. They took back streets, Marcus pushing the bike hard through narrow alleys and side roads. When they finally approached Emma's building from the rear parking lot, she saw it immediately. The dark sedan parked in front, engine running. 2 men standing by her apartment door. One of them was picking the lock. Stay here, Marcus said, killing the engine. Like hell. Emma swung off the bike. Emma! It's my apartment. My life. I'm not hiding. Something fierce flashed in his eyes. Pride, maybe. Or fear. He nodded once, then moved toward the building with Emma right behind him. They took the back stairs, avoiding the elevator. Marcus moved like a shadow, silent, efficient, nothing like the easygoing mechanic she'd known. This was someone else. Someone who'd learned to survive in a world where one mistake meant death. They reached her floor just as the apartment door swung open. Hey! Emma shouted before she could stop herself. The 2 men spun around. One reached into his jacket. Marcus moved. He closed the distance in 3 strides and slammed into the first man before the gun cleared its holster. They hit the wall hard enough to crack the drywall, and Marcus drove his elbow into the man's throat. The guy went down gasping. The second man had his weapon out now, barrel swinging toward Marcus. Emma didn't think. She grabbed the fire extinguisher mounted on the wall and swung it with everything she had. It connected with the gunman's shoulder, throwing off his aim. The shot went wide, punching a hole in the ceiling. Marcus spun and kicked the gun from his hand, then followed with a punch that dropped the man to his knees. Another hit, and he collapsed. The whole thing took maybe 15 seconds. Emma stood there, fire extinguisher still raised, her entire body shaking. Marcus grabbed her arm. More will come. We have to move. Inside her apartment, they found it ransacked. Drawers pulled out, mattress slashed, her belongings scattered like wreckage. They'd been looking for something. Or just sending a message. Grab whatever you can carry, Marcus said, already moving through the rooms, checking corners. 30 seconds. Emma stuffed clothes into a backpack with trembling hands. Grabbed her laptop, her phone charger, a photo of her and Marcus from before, the one she'd kept hidden in her nightstand drawer. From the stairwell, she heard voices. Heavy footsteps. Time's up, Marcus said. They ran. Down the fire escape, metal clanging under their feet. Behind them, someone shouted. A door slammed open. They hit the parking lot at a sprint. Marcus reached the bike first, already kicking it to life as Emma threw herself onto the seat behind him. Hold on. The motorcycle roared forward just as 3 men burst from the building. One raised a gun. Emma wrapped her arms around Marcus's waist and pressed herself against his back. The first shot missed. The second pinged off a dumpster as they screamed around the corner. Then they were on the street, weaving through traffic, Marcus pushing the bike to speeds that made Emma's stomach drop. Cars honked. Brakes screeched. The world blurred into streaks of light and color. She buried her face against his shoulder, felt his body tense and shift as he leaned into turns. Her arms locked around him, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a tilting world. And that's when it hit her. This was the first time she'd touched him in 5 years. His body was different, harder, leaner, carved by survival. But underneath the changes, he was still Marcus. She'd forgotten how he smelled. Leather and rain and motor oil and something underneath it all that was just him. A scent her body remembered even when her mind tried to forget. She held on tighter. They rode for 20 minutes, doubling back, taking random turns until Marcus was certain they weren't being followed. Finally, he pulled into the parking lot of a rundown motel on the edge of town, the kind of place that didn't ask for ID and took cash without questions. "Stay here," he said, and went to get a room. 5 minutes later, they were inside a space that smelled like cigarettes and desperation. One bed. A bathroom with suspicious stains. A window that overlooked the highway. Emma dropped her backpack and sank onto the edge of the bed. Adrenaline was draining from her system, leaving her hollow and shaking. Marcus locked the door, checked the window, pulled the curtains. When he finally stopped moving, he just stood there, his back to her, shoulders tight. "You okay?" he asked quietly. Emma laughed, but it came out broken. "Am I okay?" "Marcus, people just tried to kill us." "I know. And you." She stopped, replaying the fight in her mind. The brutal efficiency of it. The way he'd moved like violence was a language he spoke fluently. "That wasn't you. The you I knew couldn't have." "I know." He turned to face her. "This wasn't the boy who used to read you poetry." "I get that." Emma met his eyes and saw the truth there. This was someone who'd learned to survive hell. Who'd done things he probably couldn't take back. Who'd become someone new out of necessity. And she didn't know if she could love this version of him. But she also couldn't ignore the fact that he'd just saved her life. "We can't keep running," she whispered. Marcus crossed the room and sat beside her on the bed. Not touching, but close enough that she could feel his warmth. "I know," he said. "They'll keep coming. They'll never stop." "I know." Emma looked at him. "So we end this." His jaw clenched. "That's what I'm afraid of." Afraid. Ending this means facing them head-on. Means walking into something we might not walk out of. He finally looked at her, and she saw the fear there. Raw and real. "I just got you back, Emma. I can't lose you again." "You won't." She didn't know where the certainty came from, but it filled her voice. "We do this together. We finish what they started." Marcus studied her face for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Together," he said. And in that cheap motel room, with danger circling and their future uncertain, they made a choice. They were done running. Tomorrow, they'd fight back. Section 7. The Rooftop Showdown. Facing the Past. Marcus made the call at dawn. Emma watched from across the motel room as he spoke in low, clipped sentences into the burner phone. She couldn't hear the other end of the conversation, but she saw his jaw tighten, saw the way his free hand clenched into a fist. When he hung up, he didn't look at her right away. "It's done," he said. "Tonight. Midnight. The old Riverside warehouse on 5th. And they agreed. Rodriguez wants this finished as much as we do." Marcus finally met her eyes. He said, "Come alone, or you die." Those were his words. Emma stood up. "Then it's a good thing I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not." "Marcus." "Emma, these people don't negotiate. They don't make deals. This is a trap, and we both know it." His voice rose. "I'm giving myself up. That's the plan. You stay here, stay safe, and when it's over, you're dead." She crossed the room, grabbed his shoulders. "I'm not losing you again. Not without a fight. This isn't your fight. Like hell it isn't." Fire blazed in her eyes. "They came after me. They ransacked my home. They've been hunting me for weeks. This became my fight the second they decided I was leverage." Marcus stared at her, and she saw the war happening behind his eyes. The desire to protect her versus the knowledge that she was right. "If you come," he said quietly, "you do exactly what I say. When I say it. No hesitation. Deal?" He pulled out another phone, one she hadn't seen before. Dialed a number. Waited. "It's Chen," he said when someone answered. "Yeah." "Tonight. Riverside Warehouse. Rooftop. Midnight." A pause. "I know the risks. Just be ready." He hung up and looked at Emma. "Insurance policy," he said. She didn't ask. Some things were better left unsaid. The warehouse loomed against the night sky like a tombstone. 5 stories of rusted metal and broken windows, abandoned for a decade after the factory shut down. The rooftop was accessible by a single fire escape that groaned under their weight as they climbed. When they reached the top, Rodriguez was already waiting. He stood in the center of the roof, flanked by 4 men. All armed. All watching Marcus and Emma with the cold eyes of people who'd killed before and wouldn't hesitate to do it again. Rodriguez himself was smaller than Emma expected. Mid-50s, gray at the temples, wearing an expensive suit that looked absurd in this setting. But his smile, that smile was pure predator. "Marcus Chen," he said. "Back from the dead. How biblical." Marcus stepped forward, positioning himself between Emma and the guns. "You wanted me. Here I am. Let her go. Let her go." Rodriguez laughed. "That's not how this works, kid. You don't get to fake your death, cost me 5 years of wondering if you talked, and then walk away clean." "I never talked. Never told anyone anything." "Maybe. Maybe not." Rodriguez's eyes slid to Emma. "But she's leverage now. Insurance that you'll stay quiet. Permanently." Emma felt ice slide down her spine. Marcus's voice went hard. "You want me quiet? Fine. I'll disappear again. Change my name, leave the country, whatever you want. Just let her walk away from this. No deal." Rodriguez pulled a gun from inside his jacket, casual as checking his watch. "See, the problem is trust. I don't have any. Not with you. Not anymore." "Then what do you want?" "I want you to understand that nobody leaves my organization. Not alive, anyway." He raised the gun, pointed it at Emma. "I want you to watch her die knowing it's your fault. Then I'll kill you too." Emma's heart hammered. She saw Marcus tense, calculating distances, odds. She stepped forward. "No deal," she said, echoing Rodriguez's words. "We both walk, or neither of us does." Rodriguez's eyebrows rose. "Brave. Stupid, but brave." "Emma, get back," Marcus started. That's when they heard it. Sirens. Distant but growing closer. Multiple vehicles, converging fast. Rodriguez's head snapped toward the sound. His men shifted nervously. "What did you do?" Rodriguez snarled. Marcus smiled, cold and sharp. "Insurance policy. I called the FBI before we came. Gave them everything, names, dates, shipment routes, bank accounts. 5 years of information I've been holding on to. They're probably surrounding this building right now." "You're bluffing." "Am I?" The sirens were louder now. Flashing lights visible in the distance. Rodriguez's face twisted with rage. "You just signed your death warrant." He swung the gun toward Marcus and fired. Everything happened at once. Marcus shoved Emma backward. The bullet caught him in the shoulder instead of the chest, spinning him around. He hit the rooftop hard. Emma screamed. Rodriguez aimed again, but suddenly the rooftop erupted with motion. Doors slammed open. Voices shouted, "FBI! Drop your weapons!" Agents in tactical gear flooded the space, guns drawn, red laser sights painting the cartel members like targets. Rodriguez's men dropped their weapons, raised their hands. But Rodriguez himself kept his gun up, swinging wildly between Marcus and the agents. "Drop it!" an agent shouted. "Last warning." For a moment, Emma thought he might actually shoot. Might decide if he was going down, he'd take them with him. Then his hand opened. The gun clattered to the concrete. "On your knees. Hands behind your head." Rodriguez complied, his face a mask of pure hatred as zip-tie cuffs secured his wrists. Emma didn't watch the arrests. She was already on her knees beside Marcus, her hands pressing against his shoulder where blood bloomed dark against his jacket. "Marcus! Marcus, look at me!" His eyes found hers, pained but alert. "Hey!" he whispered. "Don't you dare die on me again." Her voice broke, tears streaming down her face. "Don't you dare." "Not planning on it." He tried to smile. Winced instead. "Hurts like hell though." "Good. You deserve it for being stupid enough to get shot." An EMT appeared, gently moving Emma aside. "Let us work, ma'am." She stepped back, watching as they cut away his jacket, assessed the wound. The bullet had gone through, clean entry and exit. Not fatal. He'd be okay. He'd be okay. Emma's legs went weak. She sat down hard on the concrete, adrenaline finally crashing, and watched the scene unfold around her. Rodriguez and his men led away in handcuffs. The warehouse surrounded by federal vehicles. Agents securing the scene. It was over. The nightmare that had stolen 5 years of their lives, that had turned Marcus into a ghost and Emma into a grieving shell, it was finally, truly over. Marcus caught her eye from where the EMTs were working on him. Even bleeding and pale, he smiled at her. A real smile. The kind she remembered from before. And despite everything, the pain, the betrayal, the impossibility of what came next, Emma smiled back. They'd survived. Against all odds, they'd survived. Section 8. The resolution. Riding into tomorrow. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and second chances. Emma sat in the chair beside Marcus's bed, her hand wrapped around his uninjured one. She'd been there for 6 hours straight, refusing to leave even when the nurses suggested she get some rest. She'd lost him once. She wasn't letting him out of her sight again. Marcus stirred, his eyes opening slowly. The pain medication made them hazy, but when he saw her, he smiled. "You're still here," he said, voice rough. "Where else would I be? Home. Sleep. Anywhere but a hospital chair." Emma squeezed his hand. "This is exactly where I need to be." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the steady beep of monitors, the distant sounds of the hospital beyond the door. "5 years ago," Marcus said quietly, "I would have done anything to keep you safe." Emma looked at him. 5 years later, you did." His eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry. For all of it. For the pain I caused, for the years I stole from you, for—" "Marcus." She leaned forward. "You broke my heart to save my life. I hated you for it. For a long time, I genuinely hated you." He flinched. "But I get it now," she continued. "You were given an impossible choice with no good options. And you chose the one that kept me breathing, even if it killed you inside. That doesn't make it right." "No," she agreed. "It doesn't. And I'm not saying I forgive everything. Not yet. That's going to take time. I understand. But I want to try." Her voice softened. "I want to try to build something new. Not what we had before, we can't go back to that. But maybe something better. Something real." Marcus studied her face, searching for doubt and finding only determination. "We're not the same people anymore," Emma said. "No." He managed a small smile. "We're better. Scarred, but better." "Exactly." She leaned down and pressed her forehead against his, feeling the warmth of him, the solid reality of his presence. Alive. He was alive. And so was she. 3 months later, Emma stood in the parking lot of Brood Awakening on her last day of work. She'd given her notice 2 weeks ago. Time for a fresh start, she'd told her co-workers. Time to stop living in the shadows of the past. Marcus was waiting for her, leaning against his motorcycle. His shoulder had healed, leaving a scar that matched the one on his wrist. Battle wounds, he called them. Reminders that they'd survived. But he wasn't alone. Next to his bike sat another motorcycle. Smaller, sleeker, painted deep blue with silver accents. Emma stopped walking. "What's this?" "Yours," Marcus said simply. "If you want it. I've been teaching you to ride, and I figured, Well, you're pretty damn good at it. Emma circled the bike, running her hand over the smooth metal. Something stirred in her chest. Not the old grief, not the hollow ache. Something new. Freedom. I don't need saving anymore, she said. Marcus's smile was genuine, proud. I know. You need a partner. Yeah. She looked at him across the two bikes, saw the future stretching out before them like an open road. I do. She pulled on the helmet he'd bought her, blue to match the bike. Swung her leg over the seat, felt the engine rumble to life beneath her. Marcus mounted his own bike, and for a moment they just sat there, side by side. Ready? He asked. Emma looked at the highway stretching ahead, at the sunset painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, at the man who'd died and come back to life for her. Ready, she said. They rode out together. Not with her clinging to his back, dependent and afraid. But side by side, two riders on two bikes, equals in every way that mattered. The wind whipped through Emma's hair as they hit the open road. She felt weightless. Powerful. Alive in a way she hadn't felt in 5 years. They passed the cemetery where this story began, where she'd spent so many Thursdays mourning a ghost. But this time, she didn't look back. The grave was empty. The ghost was riding beside her. And the future was theirs to write. Some love stories end at the grave. Theirs started there. Because real love, the kind that survives death and betrayal and impossible choices, doesn't follow the rules. It doesn't fade quietly into memory. It doesn't give up. It comes back. It fights. It transforms into something stronger than what came before. Emma and Marcus had lost 5 years. 5 years they could never get back. But they had the rest of their lives ahead of them. And this time, they were riding toward it together. 2 helmets. 2 hearts. 1 road. The sunset swallowed them whole, and somewhere behind them, the past finally let them go. The end. Because sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about finding someone new. They're about finding your way back to the person who was always meant to be yours. Even if you have to come back from the dead to do it.